I think in a way it was a bit, it was quite prophetic, and it was kind of, there was this kind of sense that I think in Britain that that, you know, that there's always one big theme that comes across in British society, and that's the kind of betrayal of the working classes. You know, the people that go out and fight the wars and all that, and build the houses and the ships and all that, and they're always the kind of first ones to get shafted when the economy starts to go. And there was this sense in the 80s that the economy was changing, society was changing, and basically the rich were kind of no longer prepared to give working people even a kind of a minimum standard of living. Basically, you know, you kind of you had two choices. You kind of worked all the hours God sent, and you were given a little barrack box of a house, or you stayed in a kind of an old council ghetto, basically, you know, and were excluded from society. And I think that's basically been the choices people have had ever since. I mean, everything's been very, very prescribed. So I think that a lot of that, a lot of the kind of the punk rock kind of sneers of the kind of late 70s and early 80s kind of became realised as things rolled on. Well, I don't think there is. I mean, I think this is the whole point about kind of to go back to the 80s. I mean, I think that the 80s was very much the last bastion of British culture. I mean, it was like you had ravers and you had football casuals in the 80s, and before that, you know, you've had punks and Teds and mods and skins, you know, going right back to the war, and even before the war and all that, and you know, the turn of the century with the Teds and stuff. But I think that the 90s came along, and then you had kind of Britpop, which was basically a celebration of everything that had gone before. It's one song, basically, a last kind of gasp, kind of twitching of the corpse. And in the 2000s, you've had globalisation, so you don't really have a kind of indigenous culture anymore. It's all media driven. Everything is now driven by television and the global, you know, the internet, the global community. So you don't really have an indigenous British culture or youth culture anymore. So I think the 80s was the last dance, basically. I think people still go crazy and still have fun and all that, you know. I mean, young people still go nuts and have fun and do all the things that they've always done. But I think that what they do, where they get that is they get it kind of, they get the culture, they get the kind of the furniture that goes along with it. It all comes from the media rather than is generated by them, because anything that they produce is instantly marketed and sold back to them, and it's very hard to have an underground culture now, because the power of the media is just so, and the power of the market is just so all pervasive. It's a bit like kind of it's a bit like Elvis Presley and the sort of the kind of I mean, Elvis Presley at sort of at 22, when he was kind of burning things up, and Elvis Presley when he was just basically about to overdose in his toilet and was kind of massive huge. So it's got that. That's the kind of duality of it. You know, it's about to. It seems so corpulent and old and wasted and on its last legs sometimes, and then it just kind of seems to be so full of life again. It's a kind of fascinating place. But I mean, all cities are fascinating, but because it's mine, it's not. It's my particular fascination. I mean, it depends the age you're at. I mean, I would have said fun 10 years ago, and I would say, oh God, boredom. You know, it's like, I think you kind of, I think as you get older, you change. You don't so much change. I don't change my attitude to drugs. I still think they're a great thing, but for younger people, you know, I mean, I think that you get older, you don't want to spend too much time lying around fucked up, kind of miserable. So I've just not got the constitution to do them anymore, unfortunately. Oh God, I mean, I can barely think a day ahead, basically. So I kind of, I mean, I think I'm going to have a kind of very quiet, relaxed year, because I've been pretty much flat out doing books and films for the last 3 years, so I think this year's going to be a bit quieter for me. Yeah, I mean we've got different projects in the pipeline, but financing's been, it's a very tough time for finance, and I think that people are going to hold on to money for about 18 months, I think, until they see what's going to happen with the recession. So then I think this year is going to be quite a quiet year, and then I think next year things will pick up again.